nerds, I'm Tom. Today we're going to talk about Lords of Hellas, and special props to me for actually being able to pronounce the name of the game.
And we have Lords of Hellas. Hellas.
Before we get started, I gotta say I think this game is hella dope.
Is that a joke?
This game is really big and epic, and for that reason, I'm going to give you the briefest of overviews. I mean, I normally don't tell you exactly how to play the game, just give you a brief overview, but this is going to be even briefer than normal, just because there's so much stuff I really can't get into. However, Board Game Replay does have a really good how to play video for this game up on their YouTube channel. I definitely recommend you guys check that out, and they're also just super cool dudes anyway, so you should check it out. Now, ultimately, this is an area control game, sort of like a dudes on a map type game that you may have heard of. One of the unique things about this game is that there are 4 different win conditions. One of those being, if you kill 3 monsters, you immediately win. There's these monsters that spawn all over the board, and if you kill 3 of them, killing them is kind of hard to do. If you kill 3 of them, you instantly win. There are monuments that are being built around the board. If you are ever at an area where you control an area with a fully built monument for 3 rounds, then you win the game. If you control 2 whole, colors of areas, the board is sectioned off into little areas, but then each a clump of 3 or 4 areas. There's the blue area, the red area, the yellow area. If you control 2 of those, you win the game. And there's these temples that are going to be built around the board. If you control areas with 5 temples, 5 different areas with temples, then you win the game. So as you see, one of those conditions is killing monsters, but then the others are area control related. So yeah, area control is a pretty big part of the game. And how you actually take actions during the game is just a regular sort of action selection type thing. I mean, you have your main actions and your special actions. So at the very beginning of your turn, you can take some, generic actions, which is mostly movement. Move your hoplites, which is like your army, move your hero, move your prayer is basically move your priests. Those are basically the 3 types of people you have that you can move. So you just move them. And then you go do your special action. That's the real meat of the game. That's where you can hunt monsters. You can do a usurp action. You can build a temple. You can just, get ready and draw more combat cards and stuff. So that's the real meat of the game there. Whenever you choose an action, you place a little token saying that I've chosen that action, so I can't choose that action again. And then you'll wipe them completely. And when you do that, you build a temple. So it's kind of forcing you to build those temples up. And you kind of want those temples to be up because the more those temples are built, the better the bonuses you'll get if you go and pray by them, which is when you send your priests over to them, which is super important. And that's kind of leading into my first thing. Like I said, this game is really big and epic, and it kind of takes a while to teach, but there's a decent amount of things you don't need to teach early on. Like I said, killing monsters is one of the ways that you win. But it's really important to draw a lot of cards and go at them really prepared. So you're probably not going to fight a monster on your first turn. So you can kind of say, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. When you go to fight monsters, or when you go to fight other players, we'll cross that bridge when you get to it. But just know that you probably want to have a decent amount of combat cards. You probably don't want that to be the first couple of things you do on your turn anyways. I mean, go ahead and do it if you feel like it. But ultimately, you're probably going to want your first couple of turns to be to build a temple and gain some priests and gain some more hoplites. That's really important. And that's kind of what I think is required when you're teaching the game. One, to maybe not teach every single thing, but also in that kind of explain the strategies within and saying, well, it's really strong to get priests early on. You may think, well, I'm going to ignore priests and just build up my army instead and focus on moving around and collecting or taking control of areas, because you said area control is a big deal. It's yeah, but doing the prayer action with the priests is how you get your hero stats up, and so many of the special ability cards that you can gain later on throughout the game are in relation to that. You may not even think about it. You may be saying, okay, well, my hero's stats can move up, but I don't really care. I'm probably not going to do much with my hero. Let's say I don't want to go fight monsters, so I don't need my hero's strength to be up. Yeah, but it's just important for a lot of things, even more than you would think. And it's also just good when you pray at those, because it's an action that you're doing that doesn't take up other actions. It's one of the main ones you do before you do your special action. So, I mean, use it or lose it type of thing. You're going to want to use it. Like I just said, one of the main reasons why those priests are super important is because of special ability cards. And there are a lot of special abilities in this game. First of all, everybody just has a special ability on their hero sheet. You can gain special abilities through controlling areas with monuments. You can get other artifacts. Whenever you kill a monster, you get their artifacts. And then there are special abilities that happen whenever you build temples, which again, you're going to want to build temples because that gains you priests and that lets you go pray, which gets you more special abilities and stuff. But a lot of times whenever you build temples, you'll start a draft of essentially just special ability cards. It's definitely possible that later in the game you'll have like 5 or 6 or 7 different abilities that are all laid out there. And especially also when you fight stuff, right, there are special abilities on the combat cards and stuff. So it's a lot of stuff to sift through and look at, and it's super easy to forget this kind of stuff. But that really is, while it's easy to forget, and while you don't want that to happen, and you may think, oy vey, there's a lot of stuff to look at, I'm going to have to do all this math, and I'm going to have to constantly be double checking every time another player does something, every time I do something, I'm going to have to check all these different abilities. Sure, but it is a big part of what makes the game interesting. So it can be a little annoying in bookkeeping towards the end of the game when you have a bunch of them, but as you're gaining them throughout, it's the interesting part of cool. Be like, ooh, this ability lines up with that ability. Ooh, and that means that if I move over here, I'm probably going to win this fight. So maybe now I do want to move this way. So it is really interesting to get those special abilities. But it's more interesting when you get those special abilities and they work. Because there's really no economy in the game, right? Sort of like Cyclades or Kemet, where you have a way to gain money and you can slowly build that up sort of in an engine building type of way where you can gain more and more money. And then when it comes time to buy abilities or buy cards or buy more units or whatever it is, you feel like, okay, well, I have earned the ability to purchase this much better thing because I've built up my engine, I have my economy going, I have everything ready, and boom, I'm going to get this thing and it's going to work. In this game, it's a bit more random. And you just kind of feel like every time you're going to gain abilities, you're going to cross your fingers and hope that they synergize or they go well with your strategy or whatever. Like I said, when you build temples, you start a draft of those special ability cards. I'm going to say the word special ability over and over again because I don't remember what anything is called. I mean, there's like balance kind of built in there. Again, the fact that you draft those abilities, that's kind of balance, right? You're making choices. It's not purely random. And when you draft these, when you draw combat cards, some cards are better than others. But like the cards that have higher numbers on them for combat, which are better for combat, a lot of times they'll have casualties where, yeah, I'm more likely to win the combat because my numbers are higher, but then I'll probably lose some of my characters because of it. Or, you have abilities there that just don't synergize well, or maybe the number's low and you have a really good ability. Yeah, but if it doesn't synergize, then it doesn't. So it's like there is mitigation built in there that just necessarily doesn't always work. And because there's no economy in the game, you're just going to have to deal with that. There's no way you can say, well, I'll just, next game I'll just focus on getting money more and more and more, and then maybe I can buy the abilities that I really want, the stuff that would really help me. Not necessarily. And I'm not saying any of that really to gripe on the game much. I mean, I like this game a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. It's just when a game is this big and epic and you spend that much time in it, right? And you enjoy it so much, the little things that you don't like kind of stand out a little bit more. It's like because I was having such a good time and so many things work really well that this thing I go, oh, well, I've got everything else working really well, but my combat cards just aren't that great. Another thing to bring up is your hero is mostly going to fight monsters or go on quests. Your hero isn't really linked with your army that much. I mean, there's one character who is, but by and large, you're going to want to utilize your hero to fight monsters or go on quests, and both of those things can be kind of random. Like the monsters are always pretty hard to fight, and there's usually a lot of them on the table, right? So you're never really that far from getting to any good monster to fight. You do have to have the cards and stuff, or going on quests is also really good, but maybe the ability that you'll get for completing the quest isn't really worth it for you at the time, and it just kind of feels like that is a reinforcement of that idea I said earlier, where there's a lot more randomness to the game than you would think with something that's this epic, because you could be looking around and saying, well, maybe I'm just going to spend a couple of turns trying to get more of my armies out and draw up more cards or pray more and get my hero strength up more or something, because what I want to do, it doesn't really feel like I'm fully situated well to make it happen, if that makes sense. So while I only really have one complaint with the gameplay, I do have one pretty big complaint with the components. I mean, I think the components are phenomenal. Everything looks amazing. The minis look great. The way that the monuments fit into each other are awesome. Unfortunately, you never really get to see them built up on the table unless you have built them all the way up. But my biggest problem is putting everything back in the box. The insert is nice and holds all the minis, but all the extra stuff, the cards and all your hoplites and all that stuff and the dice, they just really don't fit in that tiny little section of the insert. I sleeved all the cards, so they definitely won't fit, and I just straight up have them outside of the box. So now I carry around the box and the cards outside. And actually, the box is surprisingly thin. I already have a rip in one section of it. I mean, I know there's a bunch of expansions, and I'm hoping that, you know, those expansions will maybe mitigate this box issue. Maybe I could put stuff in other expansion boxes, or maybe they'll come out with a big box. But the way it is right now, it's like borderline egregious, because it's like there's almost literally, even forget the fact that I sleeve my cards. If I didn't sleeve my cards, there's still almost literally zero way you can get everything to fit back in that box. I mean, unless, of course, instead of putting all your hoplites and stuff in little bags, you like basically just pour them over where all the miniatures are, like sand, you know, to help make them fit. It's just, you know, I don't understand why that box wasn't just a little bit bigger. It was bad design. But I mean, whatever. Maybe they can fix that later with a big box, and that'll be awesome. Okay, I feel like I've been talking forever about this game. It's really fun. I love it a lot. I'm definitely excited to try expansions and stuff. I want to see more. I want to see a 5th player and maybe 6th player. That sounds like that's going to take a long time, but I'm definitely interested to see it. I'd like to see more what they're going to do with this game, if they're going to have any more content for it. This is really up there with some of my favorite, you know, dude on a map sort of games. I mean, I might like Kemet and Cyclades a bit more because they have economy, and also I just have a longer history with those games. But this one really is a lot of fun. It's really impressive. I highly recommend it. The only reason why I wouldn't would maybe be for people who don't really like games where you have to roll with the punches. You got to kind of play the hand you're dealt. It's very possible that, you know, things work out either really well, or at least there's some synergy, but there are going to be some rare cases where you're going to get some abilities that just don't synergize, and you kind of have to throw up your hands and say, well, I mean, I guess I could do this and I'll have a little bonus, or I could do that and I'll have a little bonus, but it's not going to be as great as if, you know, I could do this and have 3 bonuses that work for me, you know? But anyways, all that aside, high recommendation from me. There's going to be a purchase link in the description box down below. Also going to be down there is a link for Game Toppers. You should definitely check them out. They're our sponsor for Neverboard Gaming. We absolutely love them. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.